Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon News Update for February 24th, 2025. First off today, we will start with a warning from Latter-day Saint at LDS Mormon on X. We will have to take this with a grain of salt because they do have the word Mormon in their name, which we all know is a victory for Satan. So how faithful can this member really be? On February 4th, they said, "I am begging on my hands and knees for all inactive or former church members to return to full activity. Please. Tremendous things are about to happen, and you want to be on the good side of things. Time is running out." So there you have it. You better get your affairs in order and return to a religion started by a 19th century treasure digger who wrote a book by seeing the words while putting a magic rock in a hat, and then used his power to coerce young girls to sleep with him behind his wife's back. Now we will go to New Jersey for an article that says a New Jersey man who posed as a member of the Mormon Church as part of his plan to meet a 13-year-old girl in Bensalem is facing 9 felony charges. Bensalem police allege that Oscar Castillo Peralta, 53, of Pleasantville, had been communicating online using the social media app Kik with a Bensalem middle school student. The two exchanged phone numbers and started text messaging. After a few weeks, the conversations turned, with Castillo Peralta sending the girl photos of himself, according to police. He also allegedly expressed a desire to engage with her. Castillo Peralta allegedly agreed to meet the girl at her home on February 19th when the girl's mother was not home, police said. He allegedly told the girl he would wear a suit and first knock on neighbors' doors and pretend he was with the Mormons, so neighbors would not be suspicious, police said. But when Castillo Peralta knocked on the door of the girl he was meeting, he was greeted by Bensalem police officers who took him into custody. He had a copy of a Spanish-language Book of Mormon with him, according to a probable cause affidavit. I'm not sure why this guy thought that a Book of Mormon in missionary attire would be a good cover. Now let's talk about a YouTube video. Mormonish recently did a podcast talking about mission nurses. I did not know that Mormon missions had nurses. The nurse speaking, Rory, said a few things that I found very interesting. Let's discuss a few. Not all missions have nurses, which is probably why I didn't know about them. If a mission doesn't have a nurse, the mission president's wife is the person in charge of missionary health, whether she has any sort of formal training in this area or not. Even though Rory is a nurse with the proper training and schooling, she still had to defer to the mission president before making any major decisions. A mission president who most likely has no formal medical training. Missionaries do have access to a mission doctor and a mental health specialist, but there aren't a lot of them. So for example, there were 2 area medical advisors for all of South America when Rory was there. When missionaries go out on missions, they sign paperwork saying that their mission president and other leaders, think bishops and stake presidents, can see their medical records. Before Rory got to the mission and started practicing as the mission nurse, the elders and sisters had no clear direction on where to go or what to do in a medical emergency. While this likely wouldn't be a big deal for a missionary serving in their home country, it could be a huge deal for missionaries serving missions outside their home country. I have a brother who served his mission in a foreign country and got incredibly ill while he was there. And when he came home 6 months early because of these medical issues, he talked about how horrendous it was trying to get medical care in the country that he was in. Rory also said there are not enough area mental health advisors for the amount of missionaries who need mental health care. While Rory was serving, there was 1 mental health advisor for all of South America, which had around 67 missions with 180 or so missionaries per mission. Now let's listen to one small clip of that episode, the part that I found the most interesting.
So it was like high 30s, low 40s of American missionaries serving foreign missions would go home versus like low 30s to high 20s of like the local area missionaries that would go home early for medical issues. And then of those missionaries that would go home for like health, like physical health problems, like a majority of them would recover spontaneously in like the following months afterwards. Yeah. Because like mental health is very closely tied to physical health. So if you are under a lot of stress, you are probably going to have a lot of physical stress too. And it was just such a fascinating statistic. I just remember being like, okay, so most of them are going home. And like they did emphasize that it wasn't they were trying to get out of the mission. It's just like the stress was so much, like so badly that it was causing physical symptoms. Yep. And they were going home because of that. So they do have all the numbers. They track everything, and they follow up with the missionaries afterwards so they can contribute to their numbers to know how many are spontaneously like healing afterwards. So they can assume what the mental health impact is, and it is very significant.
I personally never had the opportunity to go on a mission. In the late 90s and early 2000s, when I would have been of mission age, women who went on missions were those that couldn't find a husband. I've said this before and I know how awful it sounds, but it was the overwhelming feeling among those I associated with at the time. My brothers would call sister missionaries sweet spirits in a very derogatory way, or they would call them butterfaces, meaning everything is good looking but her face. If I hadn't gotten married and I'd made it to the ripe old age of 21 without a husband, I would have felt ashamed to go on a mission, and I'm sure my mental health would have reflected that. If you want to hear the rest of what Rory said on Mormonish, go check out their episode 238 on YouTube. It's called LDS Mission Nurse Speaks Out on Missionary Mental Health Crisis. Now let's read about some current missionary experiences from a Facebook group called Missionary Mamas Worldwide. The first one says, feeling frustrated, so I need to vent where I think you'll understand. My kid got transferred to a new apartment and companion last Thursday. During our P-Day chat last night, I learned that his companion is utterly terrible to him. Like, shouts at him for eating candy, shouts at him for turning on his lamp by his bedside in the evenings. He brought it with him to make it cozy. There's much more that I can handle, but to top it off, there's no pans to cook on in the apartment. My son is new to the apartment. This elder is not. The elder has his own cookware and will not share it. Yes, my kid sent an email to his mission president. No, he does not want an emergency transfer. My son said that other missionaries have had a terrible time with this kid too, but I honestly wish I could speak to his mother and ask what the, excuse my frustrations, but my kid has been out for less than a year. This kid has been out for more than a year. Where is his charity? I can't fix it. I know he's figuring it out on his own. He will. But what in the world? I can handle the guy being a jerk, but to not allow him to eat hot food? What would Jesus do? LOL. This next one says, is there a support group for parents that have a missionary coming home early? We're facing the possibility and would like help, ideas, and support as we navigate it. Another mom said, needing some advice, my son is really struggling right now with mission culture. He feels like rules have become more important than people and it's caused a lot of strife. He isn't a person who will write people off and feels like along with teaching the lessons, we should be teaching by our deeds and examples we set and love we show. Unfortunately, he keeps being reprimanded for this and it's hard. He is not a person who will back down and just wants to come home because he feels like he went on his mission to serve the Lord and that's not what he's doing. He feels like he's just following arbitrary rules and hasn't felt the Spirit in weeks. He says it's like they took all of the most toxic people from high school and made them leaders. Has anyone else dealt with this? Any advice I can give him? And another one says, my son went out and after a few months called us and told us he was gay. He still hasn't come out to anyone but us, but he was really struggling on his mission teaching about eternal families and knowing that would not be part of his future. He just couldn't make it all make sense in his head, serving in a place where there were so many other things to deal with every day, including a really hard language. He asked to come home and we felt it would be best. He was receiving counseling, but it was over Zoom and not very helpful. He is the best kid and hasn't done much wrong in his life. He's been home for a few months now and is thriving. It was the best decision for him. He doesn't regret going, but staying was too hard for him. We do know kids that are openly gay who have gone and had success, but it wasn't right for my son. My son is still very active, goes to the temple, and is trying to find his way. He's doing okay. I'm proud of him. It's actually been me that has had a trial of my faith over all of it, but we're all figuring it out. And another mom says, my girl came home early due to mental health struggles and will finish as a service missionary. She feels like a failure and a disappointment, but her and her mission president both prayed and got this answer. Has anyone else's missionary come home early due to mental health? Did they successfully complete their mission? And the last one that I will read says, I'm not sure if I'm opening a can of worms, but we are hearing a lot more about kids returning home from their missions due to mental health issues. I'm curious if there's any theme to the issues they are facing and how we as parents can help, hopefully, alleviate some of these potential issues before they leave or in speaking with them while they're gone. I still have another son to send off, likely in the next year to two, and I'm trying to be proactive. Anyone have some insight? Because I've been out of the church since 2018, it's always a good reminder to me to read through the perspectives of faithful believing members to see what's going on there. I think missionaries and mental health is a huge thing the church is struggling with right now. Now let's go to the Facebook page, Protect LDS Children, where it says, "The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is facing a wave of new lawsuits filed by victims of child SA who claim a systemic cover-up by church leadership enabled the abuse and failed to protect child victims. These lawsuits, filed by attorneys from Waters, Krause, Paul, and Siegel on behalf of former members, paint a disturbing picture of a church that prioritized protecting its reputation over safeguarding its members." It then has a screenshot from the law firm that says the following: "The Santa Barbara Stake scandal. According to a lawsuit filed in California State Court, leaders of the Santa Barbara Stake of the LDS allowed known abuser Michael Sean to be reinstated in the priesthood. Sean had been excommunicated after several children accused him of SA. The church leadership did not report Sean to police. Instead, he was rebaptized and reinstated into the priesthood with no restrictions on access to children. According to the lawsuit, Sean SA'd an 8-year-old boy during spiritual counseling sessions in 1994. It then says the Long Beach stake abuse. Another California lawsuit claims that elders in the Long Beach, California East stake SA'd a 12-year-old boy and his 2 brothers during Bible study sessions. According to the lawsuit, the perpetrators used their positions of authority and respect to abuse the children, who were too afraid to report the abuse at the time. And the last one says the Whittier stake abuse. A third lawsuit filed in California alleges that a female church leader SA'd a 9-year-old boy while babysitting him. The victim's mother and aunt reported the abuse to the bishop of the stake, who took no action. If you haven't seen the movie Spotlight, it details what happened in the Catholic Church when a bunch of SA came to light. And I really think the Mormon Church is having its spotlight moment. Last up today, let's finish with this quote that has really got me thinking, that says, "A religious scandal is when someone in power inadvertently speaks the truth." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.